My mom smells like pee! The words exploded across the dinner table, sharp and humiliating as my daughter's voice cut through the clatter of forks and the low hum of conversation. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze. My son-in-law's fork hovered midair, my grandchildren stared wide-eyed, and my husband's face went pale. I sat there, stunned, the warmth of the roast chicken turning to ash in my mouth. I didn't cry, I didn't shout. I just looked at her, my own daughter, the girl I had raised, the woman I thought I knew. Her face was twisted in a smirk, her eyes cold and unyielding. Around the table, the silence grew heavy, pressing down on my chest until I could barely breathe. Before I go on, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Have you ever been humiliated by your own family, in your own home? Share your story or your city below, and don't go anywhere, because what happened after that dinner changed everything I thought I knew about love, respect, and what it means to be a mother. The smell of home-cooked food lingered in the air, but I couldn't taste a thing. I had spent the whole day preparing this meal, roasting the chicken, mashing the potatoes, baking the bread from scratch. I wanted tonight to be special, a rare family dinner, everyone together under one roof. I had even set the table with the good china, the set my mother gave me when I got married, but none of that mattered now. I let go of my fork and sat up straight, refusing to let my daughter see me break. If that's how you feel, you can leave, I said, my voice steady, even as my hands shook. No one moved. My daughter's smirk faltered, replaced by a flash of surprise. What? You heard me, I said, louder this time. Get out, you don't get to insult me in my own home. My husband's eyes widened, but he didn't say a word. My son-in-law looked down at his plate, suddenly fascinated by, I would not let my daughter's words define me. I would not disappear. I started by making a list. Every loan, every gift, every sacrifice I had made for my family. I wrote down the dates, the amounts, the reasons. I totaled it all, the numbers staring back at me like a verdict. I realized I had given away more than money. I had given away pieces of myself, one small act at a time. I called my lawyer, Mr. Harris, the man who had helped me write my will years ago. I told him everything, about the dinner, the insults, the years of financial support. He listened quietly, then said, You have rights, Mrs. Carter. You don't have to let them treat you this way. His words were a lifeline. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of hope. That afternoon, I packed a small bag, took my notebook, and left the house. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. I walked out the door, head held high, and didn't look back. As I stepped into the sunlight, I realized that sometimes the hardest thing isn't being left out. It's choosing to walk away. But I had no idea just how far my daughter would go to try to pull me back in. And that was just the beginning. I spent the first night at a small motel on the edge of town, the kind with flickering neon and a front desk clerk who didn't ask questions. The room was cold, the bedspread scratchy, but for the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of peace. No one could yell at me here. No one could make me feel small. I sat on the bed, my notebook open in my lap, and wrote down everything I could remember from the dinner. The way my daughter's voice had rung out, the way my husband had looked away, the way my grandchildren had gone silent. I wrote about the years of sacrifice, the endless giving, the way I had let myself become invisible. I thought about calling my daughter, about apologizing, about trying to smooth things over, but Eve, a sorry time I reached for the phone. I remembered her words, my mom smells like pee, and my hand froze. I wasn't going to beg for respect anymore. The next morning, I called Mr. Harris. He listened as I told him about the dinner, the years of financial support, the insults, the humiliation. You have rights, Linda, he said again. You don't have to let them treat you this way. If you want, we can take steps to protect your assets, your home, your dignity. I agreed. For the first time, I felt like I was taking control. I spent the day gathering documents, bank statements, receipts, old birthday cards with checks tucked inside, emails asking for help. I made a list of every loan, every gift, every time I'd bailed my daughter out of trouble. The total was staggering. I realized I had given away not just money, but years of my life. That afternoon, I went back to the house to collect my things. My husband was there, sitting in his armchair, staring at the television. He didn't look up when I walked in. I packed quietly, moving through the rooms like a ghost. I took only what I needed: clothes, toiletries, my favorite books, the photo albums from when the children were young. As I was leaving, my husband finally spoke. "Where are you going?" I paused in the doorway, my bag heavy in my hand. "Somewhere I'm respected." He didn't answer. I closed the door behind me, the sound echoing through the empty house. I moved in with Florence, an old friend from church. She welcomed me with open arms, her home warm and full of laughter. We spent our days gardening, baking, and talking late into the night. For the first time in years, I felt seen, but the peace didn't last. My phone buzzed with messages from my daughter. "Mom, you're being ridiculous. Come home, let's talk. We need you to help with the bills. If you don't come back, you'll regret it." I didn't reply. I was done being the family bank, the emotional punching bag, the invisible woman at the end of the table. A week later, I received a letter from my daughter's lawyer. It was full of legal jargon, threats of guardianship, accusations of mental instability. I took it straight to Mr. Harris, who read it and shook his head. "They're trying to intimidate you, but you have evidence, witnesses, and your own medical records. We'll fight this." The next few weeks were a blur of court dates, paperwork, and sleepless nights. My daughter and her husband tried everything: emotional blackmail, threats, even showing up at Florence's house to beg and plead. But I stood firm. I had Florence by my side, and Mr. Harris fighting for me. The first court hearing was nerve-wracking. My daughter's lawyer painted me as confused, unstable, unable to care for myself. But Mr. Harris presented the evidence: my financial records, the years of support, the texts and emails. Florence testified, describing the way my daughter had treated me, the insults, the manipulation. When it was my turn to speak, I stood tall, my voice steady. "I am not unstable. I am not a burden. I am a mother who has given everything for her family, and I refuse to be erased." The judge listened, her eyes kind. When I finished, she nodded. "Thank you, Mrs. Carter. Your courage is noted." The hearing ended, and we waited in the hallway for the judge's decision. Florence squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Linda. No matter what happens, you stood up for yourself." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of peace. I had told the truth. I had fought for my dignity. Whatever the outcome, I knew I had done everything I could. The judge's decision came later that afternoon. Mr. Harris called me, his voice triumphant. The court denied their petition for guardianship. The judge found no evidence of incapacity or financial mismanagement. "You retain full control of your assets, your home, and your life." Relief flooded through. Me, so strong I had to sit down. I thanked Mr. Harris, tears streaming down my face. Florence hugged me tight, her laughter ringing through the house. "You did it, Linda. You won." But the victory was bittersweet. My daughter didn't call, she didn't apologize. She simply disappeared, leaving a silence that was both a wound and a blessing. That night, I sat on the porch, watching the rain fall, the garden glistening in the lamplight. I wrote in my journal, "Today I reclaimed my life. Today I proved that love is not a debt to be repaid, but a gift to be cherished. Today I remembered who I am, and for the first time in years, I felt truly free." But I knew the journey wasn't over. Healing would take time. Forgiveness, if it ever came, would be a long road. But I was ready to walk it, one step at a time. The days after the court's decision were a strange mix of relief and grief. I had won my freedom, my dignity, my right to live on my own terms. But I had lost something too. The phone didn't ring. There were no more messages, no more demands, no more accusations. My daughter had vanished from my life, taking my grandchildren with her. Florence was a constant comfort. She brought over fresh bread, flowers from her garden, and stories from the support group. We sat on her porch, sipping tea, watching the world go by. She understood the ache that lingered beneath my relief. "You did what you had to do, Linda," she said, "but it's okay to grieve what you lost." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I miss them, Florence. Even after everything, I miss my daughter. I miss my grandchildren." She squeezed my hand. "That's the price of choosing yourself. Sometimes you have to let go of people who refuse to see your worth." I tried to fill the days with small joys: gardening, painting, baking. I joined Florence at the support group, sharing my story with other women who had walked the same hard road.
We laughed, we cried, we celebrated every small victory. I realized that I wasn't alone. There were so many of us, mothers, grandmothers, daughters, who had been used, dismissed, and finally, who had chosen to stand up for themselves. One afternoon, I received a letter in the mail. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the words inside were unmistakably my daughter's. "Mom, I don't know how to fix this. I'm angry, I'm hurt, but I also know I went too far. I miss you. The kids ask about you every day. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry. Anna." I read the letter over and over, my heart aching. I wanted to call her, to tell her I forgave her, to beg her to bring the children to visit, but I knew I couldn't. Not yet. The wounds were still too fresh, the trust too broken. Instead, I wrote her a letter of my own. "Anna, I love you. I always have, and I always will. But love is not a blank check. I hope one day you'll understand why I had to say no. I hope you'll find your own strength, your own way." Mom, I didn't send it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But writing it helped. It was a step toward healing, a way to let go of the anger without letting go of myself. The support group became my lifeline. I listened to other women's stories, stories of betrayal, of loss, of hard-won freedom. I realized that my pain was not unique, that my journey was part of a larger tapestry of resilience. We celebrated each other's victories, no matter how small: a new job, a reconciled relationship, a day without tears. Florence and I started a project together, organizing workshops for women in the community. We taught them how to keep records, how to spot financial abuse, how to protect themselves. We wrote letters to local officials, advocating for stronger protections for seniors. We built something new, a community of women who refused to be silent, who refused to disappear. As the weeks passed, the house felt less empty. I filled it with flowers, with music, with laughter. I painted the walls a soft blue, planted roses in the garden, and bought a new set of dishes, just for me. I realized that freedom wasn't just about saying no to others. It was about saying yes to myself. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sun set, Florence joined me. She handed me a cup of tea and smiled. "You're not alone, Linda. You never were." I smiled back, feeling a warmth I hadn't known in years. "Thank you, Florence, for everything." She squeezed my hand. "We're stronger together." That night, I wrote in my journal, "Today, I chose myself again. Today, I found peace in the quiet. Today, I remembered that love is not about sacrifice. It's about respect." As I closed the journal, I realized that the cost of freedom was high, but the price of losing myself would have been higher. And for the first time in a long time, I was grateful for the silence. As spring crept in, the world outside my window began to thaw. The garden, once buried under snow, showed the first signs of life. Tiny green shoots pushing through the earth, birds returning to the feeder, sunlight warming the porch. I found myself waking up with a little more hope each day, the ache in my chest softening with the promise of new beginnings. Florence and I poured our energy into the support group. Word spread, and soon women from all over town, and even neighboring towns, came to our meetings. Some were mothers like me, others were grandmothers, a few were men who had been cut off by their own children. We shared stories, offered advice, and celebrated every small victory. We called ourselves the Unforgotten, a name that made us all stand a little taller. One afternoon, after a particularly moving meeting, a woman named Ruth approached me. She was in her late 60s, her hands rough from years of work, her eyes bright with hope. "Linda, you saved my life," she said, and her voice trembling. "I was ready to give up, but your story gave me the courage to fight back." I hugged her, tears stinging my eyes. "You saved yourself, Ruth. I just reminded you that you could." The group became more than just a support system. It became a family. We organized potlucks, garden parties, and even a small art show featuring paintings and crafts made by our members. The laughter and warmth that filled those gatherings healed something deep inside me, something I hadn't even realized was broken. I started painting again, filling canvases with the colors of hope and resilience. I hung my work in the living room, a daily reminder that I was still creating, still growing, still alive. Florence encouraged me to submit a piece to the county fair, and to my surprise, I won a ribbon for Best in Show. The recognition was sweet, but the real prize was the sense of pride I felt in myself.
David called more often, his voice softer, more thoughtful. He apologized less and listened more. Sometimes he brought Olivia to visit, and those afternoons were bittersweet, full of laughter and stories, but also the ache of knowing how much time we'd lost. I cherished every moment, determined not to let the past steal any more of my future. Vanessa never called, but I heard through the grapevine that she was working at a new job, trying to rebuild her life. I wished her well, hoping that one day she would find peace too. One evening, as the sun set over the garden, Florence and I sat on the porch, sipping iced tea and watching the fireflies dance. She turned to me, her eyes shining. "You know, Linda, you've built something beautiful here. Not just a home, but a legacy." I smiled, feeling the truth of her words settle deep in my heart. I just wanted to prove that I mattered, that I wasn't invisible. She squeezed my hand. "You did more than that. You showed all of us that it's never too late to start over." That night, I wrote in my journal, "Today, I found family in unexpected places. Today, I learned that love isn't about blood or obligation, it's about kindness, respect, and the courage to keep going." As I closed the journal, I realized that the family I'd lost had made room for a new kind of family, one built on truth, on strength, on the refusal to disappear. And for the first time in a long time, I looked forward to tomorrow. Summer arrived, and with it, a sense of lightness I hadn't felt in years. The garden was a riot of color, bees buzzing among the roses and daisies, the air sweet with the scent of blooming lilacs. I spent my mornings tending to the flowers, my afternoons painting in the sunroom, and my evenings sharing stories and laughter with Florence and the women from the unforgotten. One afternoon, as I was watering the hydrangeas, I heard a car pull into the driveway. My heart skipped a beat. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked to the front door, unsure of what to expect. It was Anna. She stood on the porch, her hair pulled back, her eyes red-rimmed but determined. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then she stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Mom, can we talk?" I nodded, stepping aside to let her in. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where so many family dinners had ended in silence. Anna stared at her hands, twisting her wedding ring nervously. "I'm sorry," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was angry, and I took it out on you. I let Carrie convince me that you were the problem, that you were holding us back. But I see now how wrong I was. I miss you, Mom. The kids miss you. I want to make things right." Tears welled in my eyes, but I held them back. "Anna, I love you. I always have. But I can't go back to the way things were. I won't be used. I won't be invisible." She nodded, her own tears spilling over. "I know. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I want to try. I want Olivia to know her grandmother. I want to be a better daughter." We talked for hours, sharing memories, regrets, and hopes for the future. For the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope that our relationship could be rebuilt, not on guilt or obligation, but on mutual respect and love. After Anna left, I sat on the porch, the sun warm on my face, and let myself cry, not out of sadness, but out of relief. The door that had been slammed shut was open again, just a crack, but enough to let the light in. Florence joined me, her presence a steady comfort. "You did it, Linda. You stood your ground, and now you're reaping the rewards." I smiled, feeling the truth of her words settle deep in my heart. "I just wanted to be seen, to be valued." She squeezed my hand. "You are, and not just by Anna, by all of us." The support group continued to grow. Our meetings filled with laughter, tears, and the quiet strength of women who had learned to fight for themselves. We organized a summer picnic, inviting friends, neighbors, and anyone who needed a place to belong. The park was filled with music, food, and the sound of children playing. For the first time in a long time, I felt surrounded by family, not just the one I was born into, but the one I had chosen. Anna started visiting more often, sometimes bringing Olivia, sometimes coming alone. We cooked together, gardened together, and talked late into the night. The wounds were still there, but they were healing, replaced by hope and the quiet certainty that we were building something new. One evening, as the sun set over the garden, Anna turned to me and said, "Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me, for teaching me what it means to be strong." I hugged her, my heart full. "We're both learning, Anna, every day." That night, I wrote in my journal, "Today, the door opened again. Today, I learned that forgiveness is not about forgetting the past, but about choosing to build a better future." Today, I remembered that love, when it's real, always finds its way home. As I closed the journal, I realized that the journey wasn't over. There would be more challenges, more moments of doubt, but I was ready. I had found my voice, and I wasn't going to lose it again. And for the first time in a long time, I looked forward to tomorrow. As the weeks passed, Anna's visits became a regular part of my life. Sometimes she brought Olivia, who would run through the garden, her laughter ringing like wind chimes. Sometimes she came alone, and we'd sit on the porch, sipping tea and talking about everything and nothing. The awkwardness faded, replaced by a gentle honesty that felt new and precious. One afternoon, Anna arrived with a small box in her hands. She set it on the kitchen table, her eyes shining with nervous excitement. "I made something for you, Mom," she said. I opened the box to find a delicate bracelet, each bead a different color, strung together with care. "It's a reminder," Anna explained, "that you're not alone, that you're loved, that you matter." Tears pricked my eyes as I fastened the bracelet around my wrist. "Thank you, Anna. This means more than you know." She smiled, her own eyes wet. "I'm still learning, Mom. I'm still trying to be better." We hugged, and for the first time in years, I felt the old bond between us begin to mend. Florence cheered us on from the sidelines, always ready with a kind word or a gentle nudge. The support group continued to grow, our meetings filled with stories of struggle and triumph. We celebrated every victory, no matter how small: a new job, a reconciled relationship, a day without tears. One evening, after a particularly moving meeting, Florence and I sat on the porch, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight. She turned to me, her voice soft. "You know, Linda, you've taught us all something important. That it's okay to set boundaries, that it's okay to say no." I smiled, feeling the truth of her words settle deep in my heart. I used to think love meant giving until there was nothing left, but now I know real love respects boundaries. Real love doesn't ask you to disappear. Florence nodded. "You're right, and you're living proof that it's never too late to choose yourself." That night, I wrote in my journal, "Today, I learned that boundaries are a gift, not just to myself, but to everyone I love. Today, I remembered that saying no is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. Today, I chose to protect my heart, my home, and my happiness." As I closed the journal, I realized that the journey wasn't just about reclaiming my life. It was about teaching others, my daughter, my friends, even myself, that we all deserve to be seen, to be valued, to be loved for who we are. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. Autumn crept in, painting the trees with gold and crimson. The air grew crisp, and the garden faded, but inside my home, warmth blossomed. Anna and Olivia visited every Sunday, bringing fresh bread and stories from their week. We started a new tradition: Sunday dinners, just the three of us, sometimes joined by Florence or a friend from the unforgotten. The first of these dinners was awkward. Anna was quiet, Olivia fidgeted, and I worried that the silence would swallow us whole. But then Olivia spilled her juice, and we all burst out laughing. The tension broke, and for the first time in years, the house rang with genuine joy. We cooked together, tried new recipes, and let Olivia set the table however she liked. Sometimes she put the forks on the wrong side, or used mismatched plates, but I didn't care. The rules that once governed my life, perfection, politeness, pleasing everyone, no longer mattered. What mattered was the laughter, the love, the sense of belonging. Florence joined us often, her presence a steady comfort. She brought stories from the support group, news from the neighborhood, and always a bouquet of flowers from her garden. She and Anna became friends, their shared experiences weaving a new kind of family around our table. One Sunday, as we cleared the dishes, Anna turned to me. "Mom, I want to thank you for standing up for yourself, for teaching me that it's okay to say no. I'm trying to do the same, with my own family, with my work, with myself." I hugged her, my heart full. "It's not easy, Anna, but it's worth it." She smiled, her eyes shining. "I know, and I'm proud of you." That night, after Anna and Olivia left, I sat on the porch with Florence, watching the stars appear one by one. The air was cool, the world quiet, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Florence sipped her tea, her voice soft. "You've built something beautiful here, Linda. Not just a home, but a legacy." I smiled, feeling the truth of her words settle deep in my heart. I just wanted to prove that I mattered, that I wasn't invisible. She squeezed my hand. You did more than that. You showed all of us that it's never too late to start over. As the leaves fell and the days grew shorter, I found myself looking forward to each new Sunday, each new story, each new moment of laughter. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer defined me. I had learned to forgive, not just Anna, but myself. I had learned to let go of the need to be everything to everyone, and instead, to be enough for myself. I wrote in my journal, "Today, I learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who show up, who listen, who love you for who you are." Today, I remembered that I'm worthy of love, of respect, of happiness. As I closed the journal, I realized that the journey wasn't over. There would be more challenges, more moments of doubt. But I was ready. I had found my voice, and I wasn't going to lose it again. And for the first time in a long time, I looked forward to tomorrow. Winter returned, blanketing the world in white and turning the garden into a quiet wonderland. The house was warm, filled with the scent of cinnamon and the sound of Olivia's laughter. Anna and I decorated a small tree together, hanging ornaments that told the story of our family, some old, some new, all precious. The holidays were different this year. There were no grand parties, no pressure to perform, no need to pretend. Instead, there was honesty, forgiveness, and the gentle comfort of being together. Florence joined us for Christmas Eve, bringing her famous gingerbread and a bouquet of winter roses. We sat around the table, sharing stories, singing carols, and giving thanks for the second chances life had given us. On Christmas morning, Olivia ran into my room, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Grandma, wake up! It's Christmas!" She pulled me out of bed, her small hand warm in mine. We opened presents by the fire, the room filled with joy and the soft glow of twinkling lights. Anna handed me a small box, her eyes shining. "Open it, Mom." Inside was a locket engraved with the words, "You are enough." Tears filled my eyes as I hugged her. "Thank you, Anna, for everything." She smiled, her own eyes wet. "No, Mom. Thank you for teaching me what it means to be strong, for showing me that love isn't about sacrifice, it's about respect." We spent the day cooking, laughing, and making new memories. The pain of the past was still there, but it was softened by the love that surrounded us. I realized that survival isn't just about escaping pain, it's about finding joy again, about building a life that is truly your own. The support group continued to flourish. More women joined, each with her own story of resilience. We celebrated every victory, no matter how small. A new job, a reconciled relationship, a day without tears. I found strength in their courage, and they found hope in mine. One evening, as I sat on the porch with Florence, watching the snow fall, she turned to me and said, "You've built something beautiful here, Linda. Not just a home, but a legacy of strength and love." I smiled, feeling the truth of her words settle deep in my heart. I just wanted to prove that I mattered, that I wasn't invisible. She squeezed my hand. "You did more than that. You showed all of us that it's never too late to start over." As the year drew to a close, I wrote in my journal, "Today, I learned that belonging isn't about being perfect. It's about being seen, being valued, being loved for who you are." Today, I remembered that I am enough. And now, I want to ask you, the one listening to my story, what would you do if your own family tried to erase you? Would you keep giving, or would you finally say enough? I want to hear your thoughts. Please share them in the comments. If my story moved you, please like this video. It helps more people find hope when they need it most. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories of survival, courage, and the power of choosing yourself. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. You might just give them the strength to refuse to disappear. With all my heart, thank you for listening. Until next time.